What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Let's start with some NFL coach news. The Los Angeles Chargers have officially hired Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. That came out a couple days ago. He's officially the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a big hire for the Chargers. They've obviously been stuck in purgatory for a while now. Brandon Staley was one of the worst head coaches probably ever. Yes, you could argue there's been quite a few that have been worse. You think, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, that awful tenure. Maybe Adam Gase, mainly with the Jets. He also had a not so great tenure in Miami. Hugh Jackson was not very good. Whenever he was with the then Oakland Raiders, and then in Cleveland, like 3 games across 2.5 years in Cleveland. Bobby Petrino was pretty bad. I think he was in Atlanta very briefly. Obviously, a great college coach at Louisville and some other places, but in the NFL was very bad. But Staley's got to be up there. Nathaniel Hackett's probably up there too in Denver, but to me, Staley's got to be one of the worst 5. It's because of what he had to work with. Of all the guys I just named, he's probably just as bad. His tenure was, he's definitely sitting at the same table as all those guys of, how bad the tenure was. To me, he had by far the most to work with than all those guys. Like, he was pretty much handed a playoff caliber team. And, outside of, one 10-7 year where you blew a 27-0 halftime lead, the other 2 years, questionable play calling, cost you a playoff spot in the first year, and then this past year, not even sniffing the playoffs is just embarrassing. Even the last 3 years, he was embarrassing. They have a great coach in Jim Harbaugh. He's just a proven winner. Exactly what the Chargers needed. He's a perfect fit. At San Diego State, he won a lot. Then he goes to Stanford. He had a lot of success there. May or may not have won a national championship, but I don't remember. But he did very well there. He goes to the 49ers, was really good there. He was in a Super Bowl, almost was in a second. Not sure why they fired him, to be honest, after only 4 seasons. You're in the conference championship, 2 years in a row. You went to the Super Bowl one of those years. He has one down year. And you had freaking Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback, and you fire him. I don't get it. And then he goes to Michigan, where he's from, and he wins a national championship. Like, the guy is just a winner. He's a really good head coach. He's actually, of all active head coaches, he definitely has the highest win percentage of any head coach in the league currently. So he's a great coach, whether it be in college or the NFL. He played college ball, I think, at Michigan. And he actually was Ryan Leaf's backup for the Chargers in the early 2000s. Then he and get some playing time because of how bad Ryan Leaf was. But he played for the Chargers at one point. Now he's the head coach. Just great hire. Chargers was a very attractive job. Yeah, you have an elite quarterback in his prime who's under contract for 5 more years, Justin Herbert. You have a lot of nice pieces on both sides of the ball. Needs some tweaks, but it's a team that, like, if I'm an incoming head coach, I'm like, I can win with this team. I can win with this squad. And obviously, if you add to it, that makes you even more confident. So, Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers. The Panthers hired Dave Canales, the offensive coordinator from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When they first made his hire, I thought, really? Dave Canales? He was quarterback coach in Seattle briefly, and then he 1 year in Tampa as the offensive coordinator, and then you make him the head coach. The more I thought about it, I was like, he's worked with some quarterbacks when he got there. Were very unproven, weren't looked at very highly, and he's done a very good job with them. They've played very well under his leadership, and as soon as he left, they've not been good. For example, he was in Seattle, as the quarterback's coach. Geno Smith, who was a career backup, more second-round pick, who with the Jets was horrible. He bounced around like he was a backup with the Giants and Chargers. They eventually found his way into Seattle, and with him as the quarterback's coach, Geno Smith went off and had a Pro Bowl caliber season, earned himself a $105 million contract extension. He had a really good year. Canales leaves, and Geno looks at the same guy he was with the New York Jets. Can't really defense, not very good. It was a below average starting quarterback this year, and one of the main reasons why Seattle was not in the playoffs. Then he goes to Tampa to be the offensive coordinator, you know, with Baker Mayfield, who's one of the biggest draft busts ever. Number one overall pick in 2019 has been absolutely horrible. Outside of that one, his rookie year was good in Cleveland, and like his second to last year was pretty good. Other than that, he was awful in Cleveland. He was absolutely terrible in Carolina last year. And with Canales calling the plays, Baker looked completely reborn, and he ended up having by far the best year of his career. Tampa ends up sneaking out of that division. They even win a playoff game. Yes, division was very, very bad. Yes, they played a very fortunate Eagles team at home in the first round, but still, they look very good. Baker looked really good, and now so he appears to have his way with quarterbacks, especially kind of guys who were kind of broken down quarterbacks. Geno Smith was once highly touted coming out of West Virginia. Just take him in the second round. Didn't work out, and then all of a sudden under Canales, he goes, it looks like the guy y'all thought he was supposed to be, almost 10 years ago. Then as soon as he leaves, he reverts back to the same awful quarterback that he was with the Jets. And then, he gets the OC job in Tampa with Baker, from our first overall pick, who's considered a massive bust. The only reason he got the starting job in Tampa because his competition was Kyle Trask, from our second round pick, who was a reason he's never played in 3 years since being a second round pick. And, he looks like a completely different quarterback. He looks like one of the better stars in the league. And now he goes to Carolina. You traded up a lot. You give a lot to trade up and get Bryce Young, the first pick. He looked really, really bad last year. And I guess, Dave Tepper thinks, I guess he can, fix Bryce Young. They weren't going to have access to a lot of these top candidates, a Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, a Jim Harbaugh. And Canales definitely must have interviewed very well, because they also interviewed Mike Vrabel about a day before they named Canales the head coach. I remember the day before they interviewed Mike Vrabel. I've been saying that would be a perfect choice for the Carolina Panthers. It depends if he wants the job. And then the next morning, I woke up, checked my phone, and it was announced Dave Canales was the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. My only issue is I don't think this. I said before, I don't love a first timer doing this. This is a tough situation. You are a team that's very bad. You don't have a ton of cap space. In order to create cap space, what you can do, you have to let go of certain veteran player. So you're gonna worsen their roster. It's already really bad. You don't have a first round draft pick. Obviously, you would have had the first pick this year. So you have an owner who's very impatient, is very unstable, a complete clown. They just brought in the GM and Dan Morgan, who really hasn't he's been around for a while, I guess. He was in the Bills for a while. He played for Carolina at one point, and so I guess he knows the organization kind of with different ownership anyway. And he's been in Carolina's front office recently. He's been the same front office that just can't draft for their life. First, I was like, it's I guess that was the best they're gonna do. They're never gonna be able to get a guy like Adam Peters or anything like that because of how just unattractive this job is. He's being handed a really bad roster, a young quarterback who's developing slowly. You might not believe in, but you gotta give him at least 2 more years, realistically. Not a ton of cap space. You might have to go in there and just let go of a lot of veterans. How would that go over in the locker room? How would that go over with the fan base? You just come in and just start letting go of guys. Guys like Taylor Moton's, and the guy who's got a big cap, though he's really good, one of their better players, but might let him go just so they can have something to sign some players, because they need as much help as they can get. You don't have a first round picks. What do you do there? Do you have to trade one of your best players, maybe like a Brian Burns? You have to tag and trade him, opposed to sign him to a long term deal and keep him long term to get that pick back. It's not a great job. Now you bring in Dave Canales. You know what? I think that makes the Dan Morgan hire make a little more sense. And so overall, I don't hate the hire. If it were up to me, I would have brought in Mike Vrabel. Again, not sure if Vrabel wants that job, but I would have looked to him. He's a guy. He's defensive-minded guy. A defense that was already pretty good. You know, maybe we can get him to agree to keep Ejiro Rivera on the staff if Rivera wants to do that. They've been blocking defensive coordinator interviews for Evero. Maybe he brings in Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator. That was his OC in Tennessee. And he's the guy was not a very good head coach at all, but was a good offensive coordinator in Tennessee. That could be a good choice for an offensive coordinator, possibly. So that would have been where I would have went. But overall, Canales, the whole goal is he's got to be able to fix Bryce Young. With Frank Reich, look, Reich is. There are some coaches out there who they look at and they get labeled a quarterback whisperer. Some of them actually are, but some of them just are not. Arizona thought that's what Cliff Kingsbury was. So they're like, oh, he was, Patrick Mahomes' head coach at Texas Tech. He was, he with Kyler, he's a big fan of Kyler Murray. But what they didn't realize is he was a below average college coach with Patrick Mahomes in college. Yeah, you didn't really look into that, did you? The Dolphins saw Adam Gase was the offensive coordinator of the Broncos when they had that, that historically great offense. Like, oh, let's bring him in. And then the Jets, when he got fired, like, oh, let's bring him in. What both teams didn't realize is you had one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time in Peyton Manning, still in his prime, at the end of his prime, and you had just weapon after weapon after weapon with Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker, Willis McGahee, just go down the list. I could have been the offensive coordinator of that team, and still had that offense. Offensive line head coach and John Fox, like, not impressive at all. And like Frank Reich, like yes, he didn't have great quarterbacks, but like what quarterback under him did really that well? Carson Wentz was okay until it mattered, and even when he was okay, it was because Jonathan Taylor had an MVP year. He was thrown for 120 yards and a touchdown. That's not impressive. Like, all right, Philip Rivers played a little bit better. He threw less interceptions than his second to last year. He also threw the ball a lot more because the Colts are a run first team, Chargers were a pass first team, just the way the offenses were. Like, again, fake quarterback whisperer. That's why it didn't work. Part of it was because the Panthers drafted the quarterback that he didn't want. He wanted CJ Stroud, and they drafted Bryce Young, which they should have done. But also that's also part of the reason. But Dave Canal, it seems like every quarterback that he's with, he's taken over a couple of just broken down projects, and he's gotten them to work again. And as soon as he leaves, they fall apart again. So, and like I said, the whole goal is, can you fix Bryce Young? If you can, you're a candidate. If you can't, see you later. You're not getting the job. So, overall, I think it's a pretty good hire. We'll just see, what this guy is made of. We'll see what staff he brings in. We'll see what happens. The Atlanta Falcons made their head coach hire. They hired Raheem Morris, the former Rams defensive coordinator. Atlanta is familiar with him. At one point, he was their assistant head coach. He was also and then eventually became their defensive coordinator. He was their interim coach in 2020 after they fired Dan Quinn midseason. He got some consideration for keeping the job full-time before they ended up bringing in Arthur Smith. I didn't love his hire. Okay, look, I like Raheem Morris. He was in Tampa at one point. Didn't have a lot of success there, but he really didn't have a very good team. Wasn't a great situation. He ended up, bouncing around. He ended up in Atlanta as the defensive coordinator. He did a good job there. As the interim coach, did a good job. And, then after he didn't get the job full-time, he goes to the Rams to be their defensive coordinator, replacing Brandon Staley when he did the head coach job with the Chargers. And over the last 3 years, he's done a very good job overall as the defensive coordinator for the Rams. And I don't hate him getting a second opportunity. I think he deserves it. But I just look at the guys that Atlanta interviewed. Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel. And you came out with Raheem Morris. I don't know if he was the best guy for this job. He's going to have to bring in a really good offensive coordinator. I don't know who that's going to be. You think Zach Robinson, the quarterback's coach for the Rams, who's a hot offensive coordinator candidate, maybe a head coach down the line? Could he lure him with him to Atlanta? Maybe. So we'll see if he does that. I'm not sure. Just I don't hate the hire. This is a team at the end of the day. If they get a good quarterback, they should easily win their division without a doubt. Tampa's going to be worse. They're going to lose their top receiver and maybe the best receiver in the franchise history, Mike Evans. They're going to lose probably a couple pieces on defense. They don't have the cap space to improve their offensive line, which needs some improvements. They don't have, the cap space to improve a really bad secondary. I'm not sure that Baker Mayfield is going to go out there and have another year where he throws for 4,000 yards or so and 28 touchdowns and under 10 interceptions. He's especially because now there's going to be more pressure. He's going to get paid a lot more. He's going to lose Mike Evans. Not going to have Dave Canales there. I don't know who's going to be calling the plays now. And, Todd Bowles certainly can't do it as a defensive guy, too. He should not be a head coach in this league. He's not a good head coach. I don't care what anybody says. Carolina is a mess. They're definitely a couple of years away. They won't probably even sniff the playoffs in 2024. And then, the Saints, don't get me started. They have, Dennis Allen's a horrible coach. Derek Carr doesn't have much left. They are even further over the cap than Tampa. They're going to lose anybody who's an impending free agent. And they have to let some guys go just so they're, maybe they have a couple dollars to spend. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to correct cap. They're like $80 million over the cap. I guess you restructure a bunch of deals. Maybe cut a couple guys loose. That's what you're going to have to do. They're a mess. They won't be better than maybe 8, 9, maybe 9 and 8 if they're lucky. So for Atlanta, if Raheem Morris is knows even kind of what he's doing and they got a decent quarterback, they should win 10 games. Playing Tampa, Carolina, and New Orleans 6 times a year, that's at least 4 wins, probably 5, if not 6. So if they're winning, they can win 4 or 5 games in their division. So if they go 4-2 in their division, which is extremely doable, and then your remaining 11 games, you probably only have to go probably 5-6 against the rest of the league, which is doable. Like there's no reason this team can't go 10-7 and cruise in this division. So it was an okay hire. I came out with Bill Belichick. Like he wanted to kind of revamp their organizational structure and he's a short-term fix. He's 71, 72 years old, has nothing left to prove. If he's only going to be there realistically 3 years or so, hypothetically it doesn't work out, or at least they don't want to. Maybe they win their division every year, but they don't advance in the playoffs, don't win a Super Bowl, and then when he retires in a few years, they'll have to just completely restructure the organization. It isn't really worth it. Jim Harbaugh, you just got beat to the punch by the Chargers. Like, Mike Vrabel's still sitting there. You could have brought him in. Definitely could have brought him in. I said before, I'm not sure if he was going to take his job because they ran through his former offensive corner for Smith. I'm not sure if he'd want the job. But if you want the job, I would definitely give it to him. If it wasn't going to work out with Bill and you couldn't get Jim Harbaugh, I would have called Mike Vrabel like, if you want, come on in here. I mean, obviously, he won't be able to bring Arthur Smith with him because they just fired him. But I'm sure, Mike Vrabel knows a lot of guys. He's very well respected. I'm sure he would have been able to bring in a very good offensive corner. He would have made that work. So Raheem Morris, I think it's an okay hire. I didn't think it was the best candidate considering how many guys they interviewed. The Browns are making some changes to the coaching staff. They fired the offensive corner, Alex Van Pelt, as well as their running backs coach. Running backs coach, that's one thing. I mean, he also lost Nick Chubb. But they're bringing in Deuce Staley, who is one of the best running backs coaches in the entire league. He was a running back himself. He's been around the league for a while. He was in Philly for a while. Then he was in Detroit. He was in Carolina last year. They fired him when they fired Frank Reich. I don't know why they did that. I mean, you gave him Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Overpaid Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. I mean, I don't know what else you want the guy to do. It's not his fault that the organization's a dumpster fire. But he's one of the best running coaches in the league. The Jets were looking at him. After they made a change at that position, he told them, I'm going to Cleveland. So he'll be their running backs coach. I'm kind of surprised they fired the LC. Yes, the offense overall didn't have a great year, but just you had 4 different quarterbacks. The best running back in football, Nick Chubb, was lost for the season very early on. You lost multiple really good offensive linemen. Considering, the situation they had, no, I don't really think it was on him. I think Kevin Stefanski is looking at it as, okay, so his first year, he comes in there, wins 10 games, wins the first playoff win for the Browns in ages, wins Coach of the Year. Then he had back-to-back 7-win seasons, and this year, wins 11 games, makes the playoff, but then gets blown out in the first round by a very inexperienced Houston team. He's in a tough division. Cincinnati's going to be there next year because they're getting Joe Burrow back. Baltimore probably isn't going anywhere. They're going to be really good again. Pittsburgh sure will at least be competitive as long as Mike Tomlin is there. They'll be a 9-win, 10-win team, I'm sure. They'll be probably just as good. They'll at least be, they'll be a competitive team. We don't know what you're getting with Deshaun Watson. How much is Nick Chubb going to play next year? You're going to lose a couple pieces because of how far you are over the cap. That great defense will probably lose some pieces, but you also have a healthier offensive line. And, some guys you lost on defense will come back and be healthy next year. But guys like very specific guy, Uga, whatever his name is, are probably going to leave because they still want the money to re-sign them. So they may be looking for possibly some regression. If he doesn't make the playoffs, he might get fired. You think, after winning Coach of the Year and that crazy playoff win in the first year, then you go 4 straight years without a playoff win. A front office, Andrew Berry, he's done overall he's put a good product on the field. He's pumped a lot of money into that team. Not a single playoff win to show for it in 4 years. Only 1 in 5 years. That will get him fired. So he's thinking, all right, the offense struggle was here, regardless of if it was because of injuries. I'm showing the front office that I care. I'm going to make some changes to my staff, and at that point, it's on him. But that's the situation that he's looking at. So not sure who he'll bring in to be his LC. He's an offensive guy himself, so I'm not sure how much play calling ability the LC will have. But he's looking to make a change. The Dolphins fired Vic Fangio after 1 year as the defensive coordinator, and he is going to be joining the Philadelphia Eagles in the same role. So I like this move a lot, but the Eagles, Vic Fangio is a great defensive coordinator. Eagles defense and their staff needed a shakeup. Next year is trying to do that. So if they do this again next year, Sirianni will not have a job after next year. So Fangio is joining Eagles as their defensive coordinator. Apparently the league is looking into tampering. Who cares? It's the defensive coordinator. What I'm interested in is why the Dolphins let him go. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. The defense wasn't threatening, but they, especially once they got Jalen Ramsey back in week 9, they played very well in the second half of the year. Overall, were pretty good. So I'm kind of confused why they let him go. I know Javon Holland, one of their starting safeties, when the news broke, he did an Instagram video of him kicking rocks. So maybe that was a sign that he didn't like Fangio. So he was kind of taking a shot at him. Maybe the players didn't love him. Maybe that was it. Maybe he wasn't getting along with McDaniel. I don't know. Maybe McDaniel was feeling the heat. I mean, he should. He's definitely going to be on the hot seat going into next year. There was rumors he was going to get fired after the playoff loss this year. It hasn't happened yet. That's why that's going to happen at this point. So maybe he was like, all right, I got to do something to prove to this team, I'm serious about this. So I guess his solution was firing Fangio. I guess that's what his solution was. I don't know, but Fangio is out in Miami, and he will join the Philadelphia Eagles as a defensive coordinator. All right, so the NFL award finalists were announced the other day for MVP. It was Lamar Jackson, who I think should win it, the Ravens quarterback, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy. I think it's Lamar. As his numbers, his numbers are those MVP numbers. Just what he did in the second half of the year was incredible. Remember, it's not the best player. Best player was probably Christian McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, who wasn't even named the finalist. It's the most valuable. I mean, Lamar is by far the most valuable to his team. He had an incredible year. I think he'll win his second MVP of his career. Defensive Player of the Year: Deron Bland, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt. This one's a little more wide open. I think it's TJ Watt. He led the league in sacks. He had 19 sacks. Just check the numbers. Now, De'Aaron Blunt had 9 interceptions, 5 pick sixes, but he also gave up a ton of yards. I love Max Crosby. He is a dog, absolute stud. Myles Garrett, bit of a nut job. You know, he's had some dirty hits over the years, but he's a phenomenal player. Micah Parsons is obviously incredible. But I think TJ Watt had a little better year. He should win for the Player of the Year yet again. Off the Player of the Year finalists were Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, and Dak Prescott. I'm not sure what Dak Prescott's doing there, but the rest make a lot more sense. This one's tough. I'm gonna go with McCaffrey. You can certainly argue Tyreek Hill, and you can even argue CeeDee Lamb, who had a monster year. I think the top 3 receivers in the league this year were, I would say, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. I don't really think it's a conversation. So I'll go with Tyreek. I'll go with, I'm between Hill and McCaffrey, but I'll go with Hill. I just think when he was off the field, the offense looked like nothing. When he was on the field, it looked like the league's best offense. So I'll go with Tyreek Hill, a slight edge over McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb. Off the Rookie of the Year, I got CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, B.J. Robinson, and Puka Nacua. I think it's Stroud. Puka Nacua had a great year. Historically great year for a receiver, over 1,500 yards, phenomenal year. I know Stroud missed 2 games, but still. As a rookie, over 4,000 yards. Whatever, you have like 24, 25 touchdowns, under 10 receptions. Wins a playoff game, won his division. That's really hard to do, especially with a rookie head coach. As a rookie, that is, people don't realize, that is extremely hard to do. That's why it's just so rare. It's very rare you see, Patrick Mahomes and most probably his rookie year go out there and have an historically great year. It's very rare you see a guy like CJ Stroud in his rookie season go out there and have 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns against 8 picks, and win a playoff game in convincing fashion and win his division. It's so hard to do. So he should be offensive rookie of the year. It's the 2-man race between Stroud and Nacua, but I think it should be Stroud. Defensive rookie of the year, you have Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Joey Porter, Kobe Turner, and Devin Witherspoon. For the longest time, I was saying with Jalen Carter, first half of the year, he was mauling people. Second half of the year, I think he kind of slowed down. That might be because of how dysfunctional that team was, but I think it's Will Anderson. He had a great year. Bit of a slow start being a 3rd pick, but he really came out in the second half of the year, played phenomenal football, had a great year. Led our rookies, I believe, with 7 sacks. He had a really good year. I think he should be the defensive rookie of the year. Comeback player of the year, Joe Flacco, DeMar Hamlin, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, and Tua. I think it should be Baker Mayfield. He had a very good year. I think threw like 26, 20 touchdowns only against only 8 or 9, maybe 10 picks. He overall had a good year. It should be him. Flacco's a great story. But at the end of the day, only played 6 or 7 games, or he did play very well. I'd be fine if they gave it to him. I'm sorry you can't give it to DeMar Hamlin. I am extremely grateful and happy that he was able to come back. He nearly died on the football field and was able to come back and play the game he loves. But the dude had like 5 tackles. The highlight of his year was, getting stuffed on a fake punt in the playoff game against the Chiefs. One of the worst play calls I've ever seen by an NFL head coach. He was a liability in coverage. He, was a healthy scratch a lot of the year. Like, you can't give it to him. I'm sorry, you just can't. By the way, Breece Hall was snubbed. Coming off a torn ACL, or torn Achilles, whichever one it was. Having over 1,500 total yards, almost 1,000 rushing yards behind maybe the worst offensive line in the league. Having no passing game and still had over 70 catches. He should have been a finalist. At least been a finalist. I think he's probably the second best candidate besides Baker. I put him definitely ahead of DeMar, ahead of Flacco, ahead of Stafford, and ahead of Tua. For Coach of the Year, Dan Campbell, John Harbaugh, D'Amico Ryans, Kyle Shanahan, and Kevin Stefanski. I said a while back it's got to be Kevin Stefanski. I've been doing some thinking. I think it's D'Amico Ryans. His first year as a head coach, he's really young, with a really young roster, and he wins the division and the playoff game in convincing fashion. For a while, I always said, and a lot of people always agreed with me, that if he makes the playoffs, he's got to be Coach of the Year. And so I think it should be D'Amico Ryans. This is one, much smaller one doesn't really matter. Assistant Coach of the Year, Ben Johnson. the offensive coordinator for the Lions, Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator of the Ravens, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator of the Browns, or Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. If that'd be a hot take, I think it should be Bobby Slowick, honestly. His first year as a coordinator with a rookie quarterback, a very young offense. Yeah, you had some injuries on the offensive line, and they still had an explosive offense. You lost Tank Dell mid-season. I think it should be him. Ben Johnson did great. I think he'll be a great head coach. Looks like he's getting the job in Washington. But he did like kind of what he was expected. Mike McDonald could easily get it as well. Took over our Ravens team. We knew it was good. We weren't sure if it was great. And they were top 3 in the league in my opinion. But I think it's Bobby Slowick. That would be my choice. Some basketball news. The Washington Wizards have made a head coaching change. They are moving on from Wes Unseld, who was 77 and 130 over the last few years. Not great. Not a very good team either. They're moving him into the front office. I think their assistant was named the interim head coach, and they're going to have a full-on search for a head coach in the offseason. Look, I don't really think it's his fault that the team is so bad. Over the last couple of years, didn't have a lot of talent. The front office was a mess. Bradley Beal was always getting hurt. Now you trade away Bradley Beal. All you get back was Jordan Poole and a couple picks. Jordan Poole's been terrible. Kuzma's been just fine. And there's no other talent on the roster. Denya Vija hasn't shown a whole lot. Daniel Gafford is a fine, rim protector, but isn't scaring anybody. The team is very, very young. I don't think it's his fault that the Wizards are so bad. But at the end of the day, they just brought in the guy from the Clippers to, take over the front office. He had the green light to completely just tear this thing apart. He wants to hire his own head coach, Wes Unseld hasn't proven that he can be a good head coach in this league. I don't think he's proven that he can't be either, but at the end of the day, he would have probably gotten fired at the end of the year anyway. So, it's just the way in the inevitable. The team isn't good. This is not going to change anything. There's not a coach you could bring in now that would turn the Wizards from an absolute disaster to anything they wouldn't even have a small chance of hell even making the play-in. So, but that's what's probably going to happen at the end of the year anyway. So, and they're going to have a full-on search in the offseason for a new head coach. Doc Rivers' contract was announced. He's getting $40 million through the 2027 season. So basically this year, so I guess 3.5-year contract, technically a 4-year deal overall, for around $10 million a year. I don't understand why he keeps getting opportunities, but that's the way Milwaukee went. And apparently Dave Jorger is going to join him as an assistant. I do think that's a good move. He's been head coach before. He was in Memphis for a little while. I thought was pretty good. They went to Sacramento. Personally, I thought they moved on from a little bit too quick, especially considering that they replaced him with Luke Walton, who was horrible. Of course, they went and got Mike Brown, who's done a great job. They was coach of the year last year for a reason. But he's a good assistant to have, a defensive-minded guy, which hopefully will help that Milwaukee defense, which has been very bad this year. So he will be on Doc Rivers' staff. On to baseball. The only thing I have for that is the Arizona Diamondbacks signed Jock Pearson to a 1-year deal worth $9.5 million with a mutual option for 2025. He's been up and down throughout his career. He was an all-star 2 years ago when he had 23 homers and 70 RBIs at 274 for the Giants. But last year with the Giants, didn't have a great year, only at 235 with 15 homers, 51 RBIs. OPS dipped from 874 to 764. But overall, he's been a solid middle of the order bat. Serviceable outfielder, can play all three outfield spots. He's a platoon guy. He kills right, but can't hit lefties. But I think the solid move for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Already had a really good lineup of a lot of young pieces. Now they had a solid veteran who I think will do a little better than he did last year. He didn't exactly have a bad year last year either. And the Philadelphia Flyers, they extend Owen Tippett, young right wing, 8 years, $49.6 million. He's having a really good year this year for the Flyers. He's got 18 goals already this season. He had 27 goals last year. He's already got 18 this year. He's one of the better young players in hockey. Flyers have had a surprisingly very good year this year, and they lock him up long term. Nick Dunlap. He was the first amateur to win a PGA tournament in over 33 years. He is going pro. He will make his debut as a pro at Pebble Beach. So shout out to him. Only other things I have. We have a lot of wrestling news. Kevin Patrick was let go by WWE officially. Now announced that they demoted him. They took him off, SmackDown. He simply because he wasn't good at it. And now Michael Cole will go back to doing both shows. He'll be with Corey Graves now. Of course, he already does Monday Night Raw with Wade Barrett, and they just let him go. I guess they didn't want to put him back as a backstage guy. There was just no spot for him. He's not good. He's not a good announcer. He wasn't very good, and he got let go. All right, let's recap Monday Night Raw from this Monday. Of course, the big face-off that we had was Cody Rhodes and CM Punk's promo. Started off, they both had respect for each other, and they started calling each other out. And they had that, where they got in each other's faces. Could they be setting up Cody against CM Punk at WrestleMania, maybe? We'll see. That was a really good segue. Then he had, to start off, Seth Rollins came out. He confirmed his knee injury. Said he's probably going to miss 3 to 4 months. He's got a partially torn MCL. Then Gunther came out. So, both of us have had, long tolerance. We both defended every week. I'm going to win the Royal Rumble. And I'm going to challenge you. But then Seth Rollins, say you didn't let me finish. I will be healthy for WrestleMania. I don't care what any doctor says. So could that be getting set up? And then other stuff that happened. You had the New Day, and attack match against Imperium, and then double count out. They fought all over the arena. You had Ivy Nile defeated Valhalla. You had Becky Lynch and Nia Jackson. Dahlia had a big brawl. And you had Dom Mysterio defeated the Miz. He got a little help in that one. Then DIY came out. And then Drew McIntyre defeated Damian Priest for Claymore. Because R-Truth, during Priest's backstage interview, he had the money from the merchandise, and he's asked him, he tried to give it to him, and Priest was like, this isn't a good time, and Priest was like, all right, he ran up, and then he came out to the match, and he tried to give it to him, and then Priest, knocked him off ringside, and then he was like, I wanted that briefcase, and he didn't know pass, he was trying to get the pass from Priest, which distracted him, and then McIntyre hit a Claymore. So, so R-Truth cost Damian Priest the match, so the turmoil in the Judgment Day continues. Only 2 other things that I want to talk about. First thing, I'm not going to go too deep. I'm sure everyone is aware. Vince McMahon, the former chairman of WWE, now, of course, he's kind of stepped away, though he is on the TKO board. He was accused of sexual misconduct and sexual trafficking. A former employee accused him of some very serious allegations. His text messages, the images of them were leaked. They are very disturbing. I'm not going to go too deep on it until we have every single detail. If anybody wants to find details, they can find out. You guys can find out on your own. I don't want to talk about it. Now, it's very, very sensitive, disturbing stuff. It's very unfortunate that this stuff came out, but he's been accused of things for years, and I hope justice served. But I'm not going to talk too deep about that, but that's something that came out. On a lighter note, shout out to the Firing Squad podcast, a show that I do with myself, Ashton, Justin, and Liam. Of course, you've all seen him on here. Liam, a little more behind the scenes, but he's been in front of the camera with me briefly as well to help me out on this show. And we do another show together. It's for a class that we're doing. Follow us on social media at the Firing Squad podcast. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Follow us. Not a ton of content up right now, but in the coming weeks and months, there will be a lot more. So go and follow us. Just want to give a shout out to our podcast. That's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.